Esther Diana.
So out with the National Health Insurance Fund, in with the Social Health Insurance Fund. But even as the limbo around the employment suitability of those employees lingers, another development is playing out in the corridors of justice. Get this, High Court Judge Justice Chacha Mwita has issued conservative orders temporarily suspending the implementation of SHIF Act, the Primary Healthcare Act, and the Digital Healthcare Act until 7th February 2024. The Social Health Insurance Fund became operational last week, where NHIF was set to be fully wound up by October 19th, 2024, and with all its cash balances being transferred to the Social Health Insurance Fund. Now, due to this temporarily orders suspending the implementation of the Social Health Insurance Fund Act, we want to engage one of the legal minds behind that motion filed under Certificate of Urgency. I'm joined by Advocate Harrison Kinyanjui. Thank you so much for your time, Wakili. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Pleasure.
Well, it's definitely been filed under a certificate of urgency, so it would definitely be proper to highlight to Kenyans, because you say Section 26(5) of the Social Health Insurance Fund Act perilously impinges upon the fundamental right to life of practically all Kenyans. So the obvious question would be, and this is what Kenyans want to know, what do you find that's unconstitutional about that particular clause?
Well, thank you very much. I first have to make a dichotomy between a comment or commenting about what we have lodged in court in defense of the Kenyan people, and especially our children, our infants. It will shock Kenyans that a child is supposed to be registered upon birth, upon your being born into this country under the Social Health Insurance Fund Act. And in default, then, that child will not be able to get any postnatal attention, and so on and so forth. So there is a distinction between my commenting about the case which is pending in court, sub judice, and informing the Kenyan people. So that should be clear in those who would like to take this as a tool of attack against us. Right. It is good that Kenyan people know the right to information under Article 35 of the Constitution is a fundamental right to the Kenyan people. And what I find very shocking and disturbing is that the National Assembly and the Senate completely suppressed the information that the Kenyan people should have known and should have had, which raises the question whether these laws were passed in the first place in accordance with the expectation of the Constitution. Article 94, sub-Article 5 of the Constitution, in particular, vests in Parliament, both the Senate and the National Assembly, the right to pass the law. Nobody else can pass these laws. But these laws, as they are, and you heard the CS for Health issuing a threat, oh, if you dare sabotage these, we will make mincemeat of you, an example of you. Wait a minute, this is our country, this is my country, but you're coming to foist on us laws that we have not even had time and occasion to deliberate. You tell me that Article 7(1) of the Constitution says that the national language is Kiswahili, and the National Assembly and the Senate did not put one advert in any of the local dailies or the Kiswahili newspaper that we know is Taifa Leo, or in any of the radio stations where the Kenyan people would then deliberate and get to know that Section 26(5) of this Social Health Insurance Fund Act tells you that you will not be able to access any service, whether it be a county government or national government, or any of the organs, the departments of those entities. If you are not registered, number one, you are not registered under the Social Health Insurance Fund, and you're not up to date with your payments. Now, you can actually be registered. So they say, well, you're registered, but you're not up to date. So you still will not be able to access your parking, county government function. How is that connected to my health? Excuse me, I want to pay rates for my property. That law tells you you will not be able to pay your rates. There will be this alarm, payment rejected. What do you mean payment rejected? Because you're not registered under the Social Health Insurance Fund act.
And if you're registered and you haven't made your dues,
But even more diabolical, and which is why we are saying that this is not right. Article 26(1) of the Constitution says that the right to life, everybody has the right to life in this country. So the right to life should be protected by the state. It is a primary right. But when you tell someone they cannot be able to go to Kenya Seed Company, because it's a government institution, to buy seeds to plant because they are not registered under the Social Health Insurance Fund Act, and that they have not been up to date. What are you telling me? That person who's a farmer, because you cannot digitally recognize them under the Social Health Insurance Fund Act, then they cannot plant their seeds. And by extension, they starve. By extension, they don't have an income. And by extension, they cannot even pay their taxes. What are you telling me? There is an eerie reminder for those who are Christians about the mark. I don't want to mention too much. I should not be able to buy or sell or do anything if you do not have the mark or the number of the beast. And for those who are Muslims, Dajjal, that rings a bell. And I would encourage Christians to consult Muslims a little bit more about Dajjal. Okay. And so this whole system that is the edifice of the Social Health Insurance Fund Act is actually going to precipitate dichotomize a classified caste system in this country of those who have enrolled in the Social Health Insurance Fund Act and they're up to date and therefore can gain access to any form of service. They can be able to be assisted by the government in spite of paying taxes. Okay. There is another class which then will not be able to access any of the government services. And the president was very categorical about that. And I wonder why the National Assembly would allow that sort of thing to happen, that you create this dichotomized society. And very unfortunately, it transcends we adults and it goes to the children. And then you go to Section 47, which tells you that you will not be able to even physically pay with your hard currency. You have to be digitized. You have to pay via a digital system. They will diagnose you through a digital system if in case of you have a health issue. You will not even be able to access a health facility if you do not have that digitization.
Well, you've definitely termed it as diabolical. And
it is diabolical.
We pick the issue where you're definitely seeking the intervention of the courts, because you highlight that it's definitely infringing on the rights of the Kenyan citizen, especially when we highlight the issue of accessing government services, whether the county and the national level. So it begs the question, because we well know of the lawmaking processes in the country. You highlighted how Parliament plays a critical role. Should Parliament have flagged this clause? If it is as diabolical as you mentioned, if it's truly detrimental to the Kenyan citizen and their rights?
Well, I'm not here to indict anybody.
Okay.
But Parliament, the National Assembly, and the Senate, they have failed the Kenyan people. And they have no more right to be paid at the end of every month to receive money from the taxpayer in this country if they allow such a law. You tell me that this law is somehow drafted on the 11th of September. 11th of September. It is laid by the leader of government, Honorable Ishongwa, in the National Assembly on the 14th. The 14th, that is 3 or so days after that. Okay. And you tell me that they publish a newspaper on the 15th. The 15th. And they're telling you that you have the weekend over that period then to look at that and then exchange the ideas. Article 118, sub-article 1B of the Constitution clearly says that you have a right, I have a right. Standing Order number 127, I don't even know if these members of the National Assembly read that. Standing Order number 127, it tells you that you have to involve the people. There is a paradigm shift that happened when the Constitution was enacted in 2010. Article 10, sub-article 2A of the Constitution now says that you have to have public participation. So public participation cannot conceivably have happened in that short period of 3 days that you tell us that you have a weekend. And how many people really take the time from their busy schedules over the weekend to look at the newspaper adverts? So this was deliberately put there on a weekend, I dare say, And I dare challenge those members of the National Assembly who would like to think otherwise or bring any other contradictory position. That was deliberately put there to just have a sham, a show that, oh, you know, we did conduct public participation. But in reality, in essence, you did not conduct it. And why? Because you even wanted to pass that law without a single amendment. I would like to clap 2 and 4, clap 4, not 2, clap 4, Honorable Sifuna. Okay. Honorable Sifuna, I'm not here to praise you or whatever. We sometimes stand on different sides of the divide. But I would like to congratulate that senator. That honorable senator is one of the voices who said, now wait a minute, Kenyans cannot be able to afford this amount of money. And he even quoted, and if you tell someone to pay 2,000 shillings, and there is a figure in that standing order, sorry, a committee's report.
Okay.
Well, he's quoted as saying that.
Yes.
So you have just that as a crystallization of who opposed it. But in spite of that, you have in the Senate, for instance, they received a bill that was passed from the National Assembly, and they repeat the same mistake of advertising in a Daily Nation newspaper on a weekend. And you tell me that the closure of the time to receive the memoranda from the people, from the public, was on a Sunday. On a Sunday. Hello?
Interesting. So
these whole laws have been passed in contravention of the Constitution. But even you look at the Primary Health Act, you tell me, and I dare any doctor, any clinician, any person who is involved in the medical field to show me where the Primary Health Care Act involves anybody trained in medicine. You have the community health promoters. Yeah. Community health promoters do what? What is their training? They come and diagnose you and tell you that, oh, you know, you have this and you have that and you have that. But these, when you look at that act, they are supposed to collect your data. Now, this sounds to me like the Stasi in Poland, in Eastern Europe. So this is a communist setup.
Okay, Wakili, and we understand that the law has to be followed to the letter, and that's why you're seeking the intervention of the courts. Just briefly, in a minute or so, to those who might be questioning if it might be too much of a move to sort of throw the baby and the bathwater, that there might be good in this particular act, that we find an issue in the certain clause, it doesn't mean that the whole act should be negated in one way or the other. What would you tell them? Yeah,
I dare say we better do that. We will save our own country. We will save our own selves. This is a project by the same foreigners who are coming to tell you that you should be taxed. Same. By the IMF, by the World Bank, and the benefactors who are behind that. This has nothing to do with the Kenyan people. No Kenyan person would have agreed to pass such laws. And I dare say that, look, we threw out the Huduma number. We threw out the Contempt of Court Act. We threw out the so-called constitutional amendments that we were going around, you know, being told that, you know, we've expended 10 billion shillings, and certain people were so desperate, clutching onto all of that. So this is to save our country. And you heard the NHIF officials being told that, look, you better take these or you go home and we will make mincemeat of you, and you know, you will learn a lesson out. Excuse me, these are not servant leaders. These are people who are drunk with power, who have no business even being or leading those ministries. They do not care about the Kenyan people. And the Kenyan people better wake up that, look, we will go to court and fight to the bitter end because this is our country, this is our nation.
Well noted. Advocate Harrison Kinyanjui, thank you so much for your time. We'll definitely be following closely as members of the Fourth Estate the developments happening in the corridors of justice. As we informed you earlier, some of those Health Funds Act have been suspended till 7th February 2024 as that case is heard and determined. Advocate Harrison Kinyanjui, thank you so much for your time. Allow us to shift focus to other stories making headlines. This is what's coming up.